The night of July 15th, 2025 was a perfect memory, a memory waiting to be shattered. The moon hung in the sky like a pearl. It was a perfect, brilliant circle of bone-white light. It cast long, soft shadows across the quiet suburban streets. Children slept soundly in their beds, dreaming simple dreams. Lovers walked hand in hand through silent parks, their faces bathed in its gentle, familiar glow. The world felt safe under its watchful eye. It was our constant companion, our silent silver guardian in the endless dark ocean of space. It asked for nothing. It promised only its light. A promise it had kept for all of human history, a silent pact of tranquility. I sat by my window, a cup of tea growing cold in my hands. My name is Elias, and I have always loved the night. The stars were my friends, the moon was my confidant. I am an astronomer, a man who finds comfort in the vast, predictable dance of the cosmos. The universe, with its unwavering laws of physics, was my sanctuary from the chaos of the world below. That night, the moon seemed brighter than I had ever seen it. It was almost aggressive in its luminosity, washing out the fainter stars. I felt a strange sense of peace, a deep connection to that distant, dusty rock. It was a feeling of being small but not insignificant. But something was wrong, a subtle nagging feeling at the edge of my thoughts, like a single note played out of tune in a grand symphony. I dismissed it as fatigue. I'd been working long hours at the observatory, staring at screens and charts. The human mind can play tricks. It can invent patterns where none exist. I told myself this over and over. I tried to focus on the beauty, on the cold, hard facts of orbital mechanics and gravitational pull. Yet the feeling persisted, a cold knot tightening in my stomach. The silence of the night no longer felt peaceful. It felt expectant. It felt like the held breath before a scream. I raised my binoculars to my eyes, a habit I could not break. I scanned the familiar lunar surface, the sea of tranquility, the Copernicus crater. All the landmarks were there, just as they had always been. But the light was different. It seemed to shimmer, to pulse with a life of its own. It was not a reflection of the sun's fire. It felt like something was being generated from within. A cold, ancient light was being born deep beneath the grey dust and rock, a light that had been sleeping for eons. I lowered the binoculars, my hands trembling slightly. The moon was still the moon, but it no longer felt like a rock. It felt like an eye closed in slumber. The change began slowly, so slowly most people did not notice. Reports trickled in from observatories around the globe, strange seismic readings, not from Earth, but from the moon. Geologists were baffled. The moon was supposed to be a dead world, a cold, silent tombstone floating in space. Yet it was shuddering. It was experiencing moonquakes of impossible magnitude deep within its core. The tremors were rhythmic, like a slow, deep heartbeat. Thump, 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 a sound that echoed in the sensitive instruments of science, a whisper of something impossible. A dead thing should not have a pulse. Then came the dust, great plumes of grey dust, ejected from the surface with impossible force. They rose into the blackness of space like ghostly breaths. At first they were mistaken for meteorite impacts, but there were no impacts. The dust clouds billowed from the craters themselves. They swirled and danced in the void, forming strange, unsettling patterns. They looked like sigils, like ancient, forgotten symbols drawn against the canvas of space. The news channels reported on the unusual lunar activity. They used calm, reassuring words, but I saw the fear in the eyes of the experts they interviewed. They knew this was wrong. This was a violation of cosmic law. My astrophobia, a fear I had long suppressed, began to claw its way back. It started as a child's fear of the dark, of the infinite emptiness between the stars. I had conquered it with knowledge, with the comforting certainty of science. But now, that certainty was cracking. I found myself unable to look at the night sky. The familiar constellations felt like a cage. The vastness of space was no longer a wonder, it was a threat. The moon, my old friend, was now a source of profound terror. I would close my curtains at night, but I could still feel its presence, a heavy, oppressive weight pressing down on the world, on me. The heartbeat grew stronger. The rhythmic seismic waves were now so powerful they began to affect Earth's own magnetic field. Compasses spun wildly. Migratory birds lost their way, flying in panicked, confused circles. The tides became erratic, surging and retreating with a will of their own. The world was being subtly manipulated, toyed with by our celestial neighbour. We were connected to the moon in ways we had never understood. We were tethered to it. And now, the thing we were tethered to was starting to move. It was starting to stir in its ancient cosmic sleep. The world held its breath, waiting. 1 week after the first tremors, the lines appeared. They were not natural formations. They were too perfect, too deliberate. Dark fissures snaked across the moon's face, branching out from the center like veins. They spiderwebbed across the familiar seas and craters, carving new, terrifying geography onto the lunar surface. From Earth, they looked like cracks in a great white eggshell, but I knew they were not cracks. They were wrinkles. The wrinkles on a face that was slowly, impossibly unfurrowing. The moon was no longer a sphere of rock, it was a face, and its eyelid was beginning to open. Panic finally erupted across the globe. There was no more denying it. Every person on the planet could see it with their own eyes. The thing in the sky was alive. Religions fractured, governments collapsed. The very foundation of human understanding was shattered into a million pieces. How could we have been so blind? We had studied it for centuries, landed on it, taken samples from it. We had walked upon the face of a sleeping god and had never known. The arrogance of our species was laid bare. We were not masters of our world. We were merely insects living on a leaf, unaware of the forest. My astrophobia became my prison. I could not go outside. The sky was no longer a sky. It was the ceiling of a vast cosmic room, and its occupant was looking down at us. I spent my days in my basement surrounded by my books and charts, trying to find an answer, an explanation, but there was none. Our science was a child's toy in the face of this reality. The horror was not that we were alone in the universe. The horror was that we were not. And the thing that was with us had been watching us sleep for our entire existence, a silent, patient predator. The fissure that ran through the center of the moon widened. It was a long, horizontal gash. It was a lid slowly peeling back. And from within the darkness of that chasm, something began to gleam. A light that was not a reflection. It was a direct, piercing luminescence. It was the light of a pupil, a colossal, world-sized pupil focusing on the Earth. The moon was no longer just watching, it was seeing, and in its unblinking alien gaze, I felt a terrible, soul-crushing understanding. It was not curiosity that it felt, it was not anger, it was something far older, far more primal, it was hunger. The revelation was not screamed from the heavens, it was whispered into the minds of every living being on the planet, a psychic broadcast that bypassed language and logic. It was a thought, an idea, a memory that was not our own. It came from the unblinking eye in the sky. It was the moon's first waking thought, shared with all of its children. The thought was simple. It was terrifying. It was a correction to our most fundamental understanding of our own home. The Earth was not its satellite. It had never been. The moon was not orbiting us, we were orbiting it. We had always been orbiting it. We were not living on a planet, we were living on an egg. Our world with its oceans and mountains, its cities and civilizations was nothing more than a shell. A delicate calcium-rich shell protecting the gestating offspring of the creature that was now awake. The Earth's molten core was not a geological feature. It was the yolk providing nourishment. Our geothermal energy, our volcanic activity, it was all part of the incubation process. We were just a thin, fragile layer of life, a microbial film clinging to the surface of a cosmic cradle, soon to be shattered. The moon was not our neighbour, it was our mother. The ground beneath my feet began to tremble. Not from the moon's influence, but from within. A deep, resonant hum started, vibrating up through the soles of my shoes, through my bones. From space, the first cracks appeared on Earth's surface. Glowing fissures of magma snaked across the continents, mirroring the lines that had appeared on our mother's face. The song was beginning, the song of the hatching. The moon's gaze was not one of hunger for us, the insignificant bacteria on its shell. It was a look of love, of maternal anticipation for the true life that was about to break free from its terrestrial prison. The sky turned red. The air grew thick with the smell of sulfur and ozone. The final chilling truth settled upon me in my dark basement. The moon was not waking up to destroy us. Our destruction was merely a side effect, an insignificant consequence of a far grander, far more horrifying event. We were never the point of the story. We were just the shell that had to be broken for the story to begin. The tremors intensified. The cracking sound was no longer just in my mind, it was all around me. The sound of a planet breaking, the sound of something new being born. And in the sky, our mother watched with pride.